Well, boys, this will probably only take a few minutes. There is a certain piece of content that I have found on the internet that got me thinking. Basically, you have this content where this guy says, I've waited my whole life for this moment, and putting Banga up there. That's not Bamga. It's a based ass games. Putting Bamga up there. Okay. And so basically, he says, in the thumbnail, excuse me, I trained my whole life for this moment. And the image is, I actually started watching it to verify, I guess, but the image is of a mid-looking girl. So it's probably like an average photographer walks up on the street to a 5 or 6 attractiveness female and is like, oh boy, hi. I saw you and I just wanted to know if I could take a photograph of you. You know, the street level photography shit, right? And she's like, oh, sure, because women love validation. They love validation. And so this 5 or 6 now she thinks she's an 8 or a 9. And the funniest part, or the worst part about it is, right, and of course he's like, you're 18, just to make sure, because for whatever reason they think that they can only, and for there's legal complications when you photograph people under 18, but it's not a straight up always illegal thing. It's just like there's legal complications from my understanding, because she's not wearing anything even remotely immodest, so it couldn't be considered CP. But the point is, they have to make sure that they're 18, and it's just like, I've got 2 points with this. She's a regular looking girl. She's nothing wrong with her. Nothing. She's not a 9. She's not an 8. I don't believe in 10s. I think the highest you can get is 9.997. But she's not a 9. She's not an 8. She's probably not even a solid 7. She's just like a 5 or a 6. Nothing wrong with her, But she's not that attractive. She's just mid. But because she's not covered in tattoos, dyed hair, piercings up the fucking wazoo, that's gonna stand out. A mid is gonna look like a holy cow unicorn in a sea of fat ugly bitches. And the truth is, if with guys too, if there are a bunch of ugly fat ugly guys, a mid is gonna stand out with a bunch of fat ugly guy bastards too. But the other point is just kind of expectations. The craziest part of it is she'd already been approached before by another photographer, street photographer. We're in a place now where women are treated like goddesses. Every single mid is like a fucking 9. Guys can't stop fucking simping left and right for mids. Literally, the term simp means sucker for mediocre person. I believe it's simp is a simping for mediocre person. No, sucker into mediocre pussy, something like that. It might as well be like an infinitely acronym where it's like simp interested in mediocre pussy, which would then be a simp interested in mediocre. Yeah, you could do infinite acronym thing, right? Infinite acronym loop, or it could be a sucker interested or investigating mediocre pussy. But that's just what we got. Someone like her who's just a mid, a 5 or a 6, and I can prove it to you. Maybe your standards are so low that this is gonna be your standards might be maybe lower than mine, but like nothing wrong with this person. But she's a 5 or 6 tops, not even a 7, just an average person. And here's the thing, that's all it takes, right? To be treated like a fucking goddess, because you only have one piercing, and you're not fucking fat or full of fucking tattoos or tons of piercings and blue dyed hair. You just look like an actual woman, right? And I guess this is somehow rare these days, right? But they continue on. But, oh yeah, validation, yay, so much validation. I must be a 9. Oh boy, I'm a 9. I must be a 9. No, bitch, you're a 6. You're only a 6. And you're getting like The type of validation, only 10 years ago, I remember the street photographers would pick on like 8s or 9s and be like, oh, or maybe 7s. Can I have a photograph? You're a natural beauty. I think there is another element to this where she, in his opinion, he says, I'm not going to play the audio, but in his opinion, he says that you looked kind of young, so I just want to make sure you're 18. So in other words, he goes for the ones who look young. Maybe that's his thing. Maybe he likes the natural young lady, who just is completely untainted by, BBLs or lip surgery, and that's fine. But this, in all times of human history, is a 5 or a 6. She's just average in everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. But now, that's considered like premium. And we're sipping too hard, boys, if we're treating 5s and 6 like they're premium. We're getting closer and closer to that period of time in the historical record where 95% of all males allegedly died in war against the 5% that survived. Now, there's archaeological evidence to suggest that at one point in time, actually, sorry, it's not just archaeological evidence, it's DNA evidence, according to the geneticists. In the DNA, there's evidence or proof that around 9,000 years ago, which would have lined up not with the flood and not with the Younger Dryas, so it's kind of a weird place in between the Ragnarok and the Great Flood, the two cataclysms in the last 12,000 years. It's in between both of those. There's a period of time, roughly 79,000 years ago, where all of 95% of the males died out and didn't reproduce. And the evidence that supports that is mass graves and stuff where there's a large group of males who have hatches, what are they called? Hatches and axes and spears and arrows in their fucking skulls. And so we think it was in fact war that killed at least those people. The geneticists and the archaeologists think that it was war that killed them. And so basically what happened was there was a war where every man fought and 95% of them died and 5% survived and then bred with somewhere around 16, 17, 18 girls each. 18 women each. They say 17. I think it'd be more stacked with some having hundreds, some having 5, but something like that. Okay. Imagine being alive during that time. Well, the thing is, statistically speaking, you'd most likely be in that 95%. Most people, most men, even Giga Chads, who are like built like bricks, but are not tall enough, or like athletic run. It was just the most brutal men who could kill the best who probably survived and got their 18 women's, or maybe the elites got 1,000 each, and then the lieutenants that survived got 100 each, and then the goys that survived, the little ground troops, got like maybe 3 each. However that works mathematically. But at the end of the day, 95% guys got dead. Now, we're not facing as much war proportionately nowadays. That's not what's happening now. And so the AI who's claiming that it's the same thing, women, there was an AI channel that claims it was just the same thing. Women were just selecting. No, they were in mass graves. Women were not doing that selection. The men were killing other men. But women are part of the selection parameters, and so in that case, it was men taking those women. It's not the woman's fault in that situation when there are mass graves of men killing other men, right? That's not the woman's fault. You can blame the woman all you want, but you can't really quantify that if the man's killing the other man. You could be like, well, the woman told him to. That's not a good excuse. My third wife told me to go kill all the other men so that I would be the only man left alive. Right? You're crazy. You shouldn't listen to women. Don't let them tell you what to do. It's literally the original sin, according to the Bible, is when disobedience, yes, but how did that disobedience happen? The women rebelled against the ultimate patriarch, God, cucked her husband, took on the masculine role, which is leadership, and she became the man, and Adam became the woman. That's feminism. The original sin is just a warning about feminism. How can it be anything else? It's exactly what happened in that story. Feminism is exactly what you would describe as what had happened. So the ancients warned us about letting women rule over men, letting women lead. They warned about how there are sex roles, and if you jump out of those sex roles, you're going to have Pandora's box, right? Pandora was a female. It's Pandora's box, not Gigachad 59's box. Pandora's box alludes to like AI or the internet or a bucket full of crimes or sins or danger that opens up when you trust the wrong whammy. And that's what the story's about. And we've gotten to a point where we elevate all women on a pedestal like goddesses more than ever before. But every man is shoved down and just you're not even disposable for war anymore. They're gonna have the robots do that. They got no use for you. No use for you at all. It's just these 5s and 6. They're the goddesses. And then if you find a 7 with no tattoos, holy shit. A 7? I've seen a few 7s without tattoos. 8s. Usually by the time they get to 8s or 9s, they've got 50 million tattoos, piercings, and, surgery to help them get there. But I guess the only thing that's really exceptional about this female is that she has no visible tattoos. But you can't know what's under that, so she probably has a few, and no visible piercings other than the one tiny right nose piercing that you can see might be there. No septum, no cow. She's not a cow, so it's like congratulations. But the second part of this, which is really disturbing, is here's this mid who would make literally 50% of all the men who have ever existed happy and bear the kids and save the human species together from extinction. And what is she doing with her life? She's studying for a fucking degree she doesn't even want to do. She literally says she wants to do biology, but the thing that she's studying for specifically is coding, and she doesn't really like coding. What a surprise. She wants to work with animals because her brain's confused into thinking that animals are humans. But her brain and her body are programmed for a different task. Men are programmed to work with things and to lead large groups of men. Women are programmed to work with humans that are very small. And so what happens when you go back to the original sin and the species flips the roles and women become men, right? Taking on responsibility, taking on education, learning about how science works, how to build nuclear bombs or how to code, how to understand biology better. Those are all masculine roles. But when women become men, then men have to become women. That's partially why men are literally trying to call themselves women, identifying as women. That's partially why there are so many simps, is because, and this is the thing, this photographer here is probably a 6 or a 7. How can I know that? I can't see him. Generally speaking, I've seen them before, maybe not this one specifically, but generally speaking, they're at least 7s. Why is that? Because the 5 or 6 photographers that do this get this reaction. Oh, creep, go away! Bitches are living on easy mode. They've always lived on easy mode. And sometimes they live on hard mode too, for sure. Like in Saudi Arabia, they might be living on hard mode. But in the West, in the past 500 years, they've been on easy mode. And now they're on the easiest of easy modes. But the irony is, maybe you can be a boss bitch and have your career and have one kid. And maybe you'll be happy. And at the end of that, we have the extinction of the human species. If everyone imports into the West and adopts this feminist woke ideology, this culture of having only one kid because the mom's a girl boss, and then they get divorced, and she's a single mommy now. They're having mass immigration, legal or otherwise, into the West to save the population crisis, which is like under correction. In other words, there are not enough people to replace the people who are dying. And so the West is going extinct. All white people are going extinct. All Europeans are going extinct. All Westerners, even black Westerners, are going extinct. Everyone but the Amish and the Shikl-Tidian, what are they called? The Jews, the very, very conservative ones, the very, very living on the Amish who are probably living on welfare too, but don't get pointed out as much. And then the Jews who are living on welfare too, the really traditional ones, the actual Jews, and the actual Amish, the real ones, the real Amish, the real Jews, not the fake ones who, are 50 billion other things, but they also use the word Jew to identify the actually practicing, what are they called, religious Jews. There's another term that they use, Hasidic, right? The actual Hasidic Jews, the actual real Jews, Orthodox Jews that are extremely conservative or traditional. You might disagree with how some of them are on welfare, and the Amish. Those two groups in the United States are reproducing past the rate that you need to make up for people dying, like 2.4 or more, okay? Because some people don't have kids, and everyone else is not. So basically what you have, with only a few exceptions, the people to be imported in. And so that's what they leads to, import in new, cheaper slave class, indentured servant class, and that's what they are, to replace that's why it's called the Great Replacement. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just what's fucking happening. It's literally what's happening. You have people replacing other people. So it's like, that's what they're doing. But the irony is, it's only 3 generations max until these people adopt Western culture. And I hate to tell you, but the current dominant culture in the West is shit. It's extinction. It's literally functionally extinction. Our culture right now, our dominant culture, is driving us extinct. Self-hatred, suicidal empathy, woke extinction religion ideology, feminism, sexes being men becoming women, women becoming men. This culture, which came out in the 1990s, so you might think the 1990s had golden culture, but no, actually, sex, drugs, and rock and roll isn't a good idea in the end. Look at, I made an image where it's like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll culture. Do you want that culture? Do you want the culture of the extinction religion? Do you want the homoglobal Zionism culture? Or do you want maybe exohumanism? And people are like, I'll take sex, drugs, and rock and roll, please, because it was the 90s. But you had the same problem in the 90s. We've had a serious, as far as I'm certain, a serious reproduction problem ever since like the 50s, or after the 50s, the 60s. Whether it took 30 years for feminism, or there's other things that might have happened in the 60s that helped, I don't know. But black people and white people and the other kinds of people all have this problem because they're all in the same culture. And another big part of the problem is whether or not you can afford kids. And so there's that problem as well. But part of that problem is not fixed. It's actually made worse by importing other people. And so when you import these people who work cheaper, now you don't have a job, you can't afford a house. And so, but the thing is about these people, in only 3 generations, if they adopt Western culture, they'll also go extinct. Because it's the fucking culture we have that's killing everyone. Like, if you convert to a Hasidic Jew or Amish, you have a higher probability of surviving extinction than continuing on this, like, whatever is a dispensationalist, Christian, Protestant, Catholic. Catholics are maybe closer to the Amish, but probably not all of them. Still not great. And then you have like wokey or normie or like 1990s sex, drug, and rock and roll culture. Like those different cultures. We have more than one in the United States, but all of them suck except for the really, really traditional men be men, women be women, reproduce now cultures. But you're like, oh, but we have Muslims coming in, and there's those Hasidic Jews and those Mormons aren't actually good. They used to be back when they were trying to create their own country, but then the government came in and said it must be illegal to have polygamy because then you'll have too many kids. And the government tends to be kind of depopulationist, so there you go. I mean, like, oh no, the Christians didn't like how they were polygamous, and the government really didn't like how they had that many kids because boy, and that many wives because you could have more kids that way. And I think it was more about the kids than just the wives. It's like, hey, we get to go to private islands, but you guys can't have 3 wives and have 50 kids. That's unacceptable. So they ended that, and it's only the very Hasidic or more a Mormon, what's the other one, Amish-like of the Mormons that do that anymore. And so those small categories of people are reproducing. All the other ones, and like it's really quite simple. If you turn the men into women and women into men, reproduction doesn't happen anymore. Okay, but if you turn them back, it'll happen again. With the one more thing that you have to fix, which is the economy to a degree. But what happens is when the Muslims move in, if they don't stick together and they actually integrate into our culture, they will also adopt the culture that is extinction. As the reason why I call it the extinction religion, this is the reason why I call the governments and corporations that are together kind of a single entity the extinction machine, is because maybe not by purpose, but by function, it's all extinction. Herding us to extinction. So she's getting so much validation today. Just like that last time that this exact same thing happened. Don't get me wrong. She's a cutie. Like a 5 or a 6. Like a 6 or a 5. But what has come to this place where now, and this guy pins comments, so I'm not going to leave a comment because I'm fucking done with fucking putting my shit below a pinned comment. We've gotten to the place where, let's look at him. Yeah, I can see from that, he's like a fucking 8 or a 9 at least. This guy's a Chad. He's like a fucking Giga Chad, according to his profile picture. So if you're a Giga Chad photographer, you can go up to 5s. Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, thanks for validating me. You're the second Giga Chad. You're the second Giga Chad, a photographer who validated me and said I was so beautiful. Or maybe you're just into younger people, like 15-year-olds, and she looked like she was 15, and you're like, oh boy, she looks so young, so authentic. Or maybe she just wasn't fat and covered with tattoos. Whatever the reason, that's phenomenal. That, might as well be. And it's like, that's phenomenal, right? But it's not exceptional. And it's not the norm. And she's still wasting her life away with a fucking degree in fucking nonsense science about biology coding for that. 5 seconds from now, there's going to be an AI who can code 10 times better than any woman could, and 3 times better than any man. And still she's wasting, getting herself in debt. Why do women think that the right course of action for their life is to waste hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and years to get a degree, just so they can be in the top percentile of earners, right? And boss bitches breaking that glass ceiling, and then find out when they're 30 that all the men that they're going for, which is only the 9s and the 8s and 9s who are millionaires, not the 8s and 9s who aren't millionaires like this guy. She might flirt with him and be nicely validated, but this guy's a fucking 8. He's at least a fucking 8.9. This guy's a fucking Giga Chad. And so maybe if he's a millionaire, he could also sleep with her. But like, huh? He's 3 points above her. Stop simping, bros! Stop fucking simping! It's just that simple. Stop fucking simping! Stop fucking simping! You're a fucking 8! You're a Giga Chad, dude! You're like a 9! You're like a handsome looking dude! No homo! You shouldn't be fucking simping for fucking 5s like this shit! They need to go back into the kitchen and be women, or we don't reproduce with them. Women who act like men should not be reproduced with. They shouldn't even become single mommies. The great correction is not something that men have to do to men, because men are already self-correcting. The Zoomers and the Alphas are getting more and more based as time goes on. No, the great correction is men correcting women. At the end of the day, the only thing that ever changes anything is forced doctrine. And that is your responsibility, men. If you want to keep going towards extinction, you have the right to. But until then, or in case you don't want to do that, there is always the option to put things back the way they should be. E+, be human.